Morning. It's Tuesday, June 2nd. Trust you're having a good morning. This morning I was in Psalms 137 through 140. Yeah, 137 through 140. I had to check that, make sure I was correct. And the verse that just really struck out at me, it's a powerful verse. Chapter 139, Psalm 139, verse 1. 139, verse 1. David here, he says to the Lord, he says, Lord, you have searched me and known me. Lord, you have searched me and known me. As you go through the Psalms, read what David has to say, which is really the Psalms is his prayers from his heart. Worship. Some of them were songs. But they're prayers, him communicating to the Lord. And to David, it wasn't just a theological concept that, oh yeah, God, he has searched me and God knows everything about me. A lot of times, and people are teaching and you'll hear this. You'll hear somebody say, well, God knows everything about us. And he does. But to many of us, to many people, that's a theological concept. It's not an experience that we know in the depths of our heart. David wasn't just making a statement, God's God, and God, you know everything about me. He knew in the core of who he was, God, you have searched me and you know my thoughts. You know everything about me. He goes on in this chapter, in this psalm, and says, when I stand up, you know. And when I lay down, you know. When I go to sleep, you know. When I turn to the right, when I turn to the left. When I speak, you know. You knew me before I was ever born. David said that you saw me in your eyes before I was ever formed. God knew him intimately. He knew his thoughts. David asked God, Lord, search my heart. Find if there's anything wicked inside of me. Can you search me? And find out if there's anything in there that's unpleasing to you. And as God searched him, there was all you got to do is read through the Psalms. Each one of us there's something inside of us that we hunger to be understood. We hunger to be heard. We hunger to be listened to. That's just the way humans are. Well, some people might say, Thom, that's not true. I don't want anyone to hear me. And that's probably because you were hurt. And when you wanted to be heard, you were struck down. You weren't listened to. Or you were despised because of the things that you shared. And it's amazing when you go through the Psalms of David, the things he says to God. Because he knows the Lord wasn't pleased with everything he said, but the Lord received everything he said. The Lord listened to everything he said. And he spent time with the Lord, so the Lord continually, just like he does in our lives, if we spend time with the Lord, he transforms our life. But David, the things that he would say to the Lord, he'd say, Lord, can you just destroy all my enemies? Can you just wipe them out? There's a verse between 137 and 140 where David says, can you take the children of my enemies And can you throw them against the rock and destroy them? Now we know that God's not going to do that to David's enemies. We know that that didn't come from the heart of God, but it came from the heart of David. And David, he was angry. He was scared. He was upset. He was tired of running. And he poured out his heart to God. Because there's many things that when we, it's just the facts of life. When we pour out our heart to even the people that are closest to us. There's a reason why when you get close to someone, they can't read everything in your mind. Because there's a reason why God did not give us the ability to read each other's minds. Yes, he gives us discernment. And it works when he chooses for it to work. He reveals to us what's going on inside of another person because he wants us to pray for that person. That's a gift. Comes with discernment. But that's not normal. Because God knows that if I just openly say everything I think and feel, I might feel good, but it'll hurt other people. And it'll hurt me when they reject me. It'll hurt me when they rebuke me. But God listens to everything. God knows my heart. God knows the thoughts that I'm scared to even say to him, even though he knows them. I go through the Psalms and I realize I have so much growing to do. I spend time with God, but I haven't come to the place that David did where I can say the things to God that David said. I haven't found that freedom to just say every thought, good, bad, or ugly. David said a lot of ugly things to God. Just read through the Psalms. Psalms are powerful. Psalms have so many beautiful things that David said, but it's filled with some ugly things. The way he curses his enemies. The questions he has about God, why do you forsake the righteous? God never forsakes the righteous. But David accused God of it. And God listened. David knew, I have a friend in God who is so close, who will receive me as I am. But through my relationship with God, as I speak my heart and I speak my mind, and I get all this stuff out, the love of God transforms me, molds me and shapes me into his image. And we become like him. The Bible says that we are molded and shaped into the image of his Son, who is the express image of the Father. My prayer today is that we might learn, I know it's hard, but we might learn to just express ourselves to God as openly as possible. Because he knows everything that's in there anyway. And the more we share our hearts with him, the more we let him deal with those things that are really ugly inside, things we need to be healed from, things that don't need to be spoken to anybody else. It will become freer and freer in him. So that we don't end up saying the wrong things to people. That we don't feel judged by people, and we don't judge people, other people. That we realize God is such a friend that he will listen to anything. He'll correct us when he decides to. Just like he did with Job. eventually he told Job, hey, I got a few things to say to you. And he corrected him. But the Bible says that David was a man after God's heart. And he also gave God his heart. He hid nothing from him. Psalms are an amazing book. Really revealing what a man is after God's heart. What he communicates to God, how he pours himself out to God, how he praises God and worships God. But he also has the ability to complain to God about everything you can think of. And he knows my God will listen. And because he could do that, he didn't need to burden somebody else with all that stuff. I wasn't there, so I don't know if he did burden other people with it, but he didn't need to because God listened. Because God understood. That's my prayer for us today. We become more like that in our prayer life, in our walk with the Lord. Thanks for listening.